What is going on in the world of boxing? I have the PowerPoint of power today ready to be presented, and I'm just going to talk about some of the boxing fights that have been announced for December 23rd in Saudi Arabia. And my only impression is, if you want to kind of know this video boiled down into just a few words, it is, why is this happening, right? Boxing is kind of complicated to kind of delve deep into how fights are made versus a UFC, which is so much more simpler. You have the WBA, WBC, IBF, you have this, you have that. It's kind of complicated. Then you have all of the managers all fighting. Some fighters are signed to one and others to other, and then you have them kind of fighting with each other. Then you have the fighters themselves who all think they should get like $50 million per fight, and if they don't, they live by the philosophy that Sugar Sean O'Malley once said, which is you get paid the most amount of money to fight the least amount of talent, right? And I guess that's fine if you are the fighter yourself, but if you're a fan, it makes the sport pretty much unbearable to watch. And I think there's a reason why boxing has kind of felt unbearable to watch in comparison to UFC, where you have Alexander Volkanovski, the pound-for-pound number one, coming in on short notice to fight the pound-for-pound number two, Islam Makhachev, on 1 week's notice. You'll never see anything like that in boxing. Forget about short notice. Even with a full training camp, the number one, number two hardly ever fight. It's just a bunch of dudes who are this complicated system of 1,000 different belts at different weight classes. It's also dumb. But I'm not here to trash boxing like that. I love boxing, right? But I think what's going on here is a proof of just the nonsense that's going on in the world of boxing. So first we start off with Deontay Wilder versus Joseph Parker. Deontay Wilder is number one ranked WBC heavyweight fighter, and he will be fighting the number 10th ranked fighter, Joseph Parker. Now, in the UFC, if this were to happen, number one versus number 10, you would only really ever see this if the number 10 was taking the fight on short notice. For whatever reason, the number one guy in the world was supposed to fight somebody else. They pulled out, and so they get number 10. That's basically the only time you're going to see that. And I get it, boxing's kind of different than the UFC, but still, Deontay Wilder's fighting really down. And Wilder and Joshua are both number one, number two ranked WBC heavyweight fighters. Now, I do know, I read a quote where Wilder was like, Anthony Joshua turned down a fight for $40 million, I think. I don't know if they're both managed by Eddie Hearn. Again, boxing is just strange to kind of get down to. It's so much more complicated than it needs to be. But this is the problem with boxing, right? We want to watch Wilder versus Joshua. That should be the fight that's being made. Instead, we're getting this. Nobody asked for Joseph Parker, Deontay Wilder. Nobody asked for number one, number 10. My simple opinion on this fight, Wilder by KO. I do think he's the heaviest hitter, hardest hitter in probably sports today, just in general, right? Like, if you're looking at just one-punch knockout power, you have to go with him. People are going to say Ngannou. Ngannou was TKOing guys with, 4-ounce gloves, and this guy's knocking people out with 6-8-ounce gloves, whatever it may be. It's just a different power that Deontay Wilder has. I really do think that Wilder versus Joshua should have been the fight to make. And I know that he's just coming off of a fight himself, but you could have done Wilder versus Ngannou. I know everybody wants to see that. So I'm going with Wilder by KO. Again, I believe this is the main event too, so number one versus number 10 as the main event. That's boxing for you, right? Moving on, we got Anthony Joshua versus Otto Wallin. Anthony Joshua is number 2. Otto Wallin is number 14. Now, I do think I hadn't kept up with I just kind of saw the fights were made, and I kind of made the video. I think Otto Wallin, if I'm not mistaken, just won like an interim champion or something like that. If one of you guys know, just let me know in the comments. Maybe that's why they're making this fight, but Anthony Joshua's not even a champion, so I don't know why that would be made. Anyways, but I think Wallin is a very tough guy. He gave Fury a tough fight. If you guys remember, when Fury was... He's undefeated, so it wouldn't make sense to say when he was dominating. He's still dominating, but he gave Fury a really tough fight at arguably his peak, and he cut him bad. Like, some people were like, they might stop the fight, which they didn't. Joshua, on the other hand, he's been shown to be prone to getting hurt and tiring out. He's done that against Klitschko. He's done that against Ruiz. He's done that against Usyk. Joshua can't fight very well on the back foot either, so he does have holes in his games, but by no means do I think he's a terrible fighter. I think that's kind of the idea now that he's lost a couple of times, but he's losing to Usyk, right? He's losing to Klitsch, or he actually beat Klitschko, but I don't think he's a terrible fighter like some people are going to say. He's really good, but I just think Wallen is really good and he has a good chance to win this, and I might be going with him. I know that's my gut feeling now. I'm going to definitely have to watch all of these guys' tapes. I'm just coming off of this top of my head, PowerPoint of power right to you. I really need to sit down and really watch these two guys, and I'm going to make breakdowns as the days go on about who I think is going to win and why. But I'm going to be going with Wallen. I just think Joshua in the head is kind of, after that Usyk loss and all that's happened to him, I really could see Wallen getting to him. And yeah, I mean, Wallen just fought, I think, September, didn't he? Like, he fought just a couple months ago. So I like this activity from him. Good stuff. So again, ranking wise, doesn't make sense. If you look at it just from the ranking as it is, Joshua number 2, number 14. Again, if this was a UFC, you're never seeing this. Even on short notice, typically somebody above number 14 will take a fight against number 2, like number 5 or 6 at least. But this is kind of crazy, but welcome to boxing. But I still don't hate the fight. I would just prefer to watch Joshua versus Wilder than I would this, but it's not terrible. I like Wallen. And now we're going to go on to this fight. I don't want to watch, even though the guy involved is probably my favorite boxer currently. It's Dimitri Bivol versus Lyndon Arthur. I can't believe I just said he's my favorite fighter, and then I proceed to pronounce his last name wrong. WBA light heavyweight champion Dimitri Bivol versus, I call it Bivol, it might be Bivol, that's just the way I pronounce it, versus number 7 WBA ranked light heavyweight Lyndon Arthur. So this is not the Arthur, aka Artur, that we wanted to see Bivol fight. We wanted to see him fight Beterbiev, the WBA champion, versus WBO, IBF, WBC champion super fight. So I think that there's still a ban going on with the WBC and Russian fighters. Like, I don't even know if I'm allowed to go too much into that, but I just think it's insane that that's even allowed, banning fighters from a certain country because of something that they have no responsibility in. As far as I know, these guys aren't the one waging war or anything like that. Kind of crazy. The fight that everybody wanted to see was Bivol versus Archer, not Arthur. And I know when this fight was announced, everybody was like, what is going on here? Why are these two fighting? And the consensus is that Bivol is going to just demolish this guy. And that's how I feel as well. I think there's just Bivol is levels above this man. The way he dealt with Canelo's counter-punching. And we've seen Canelo's previous fight. He's still good, man. He's really good. And one thing that Dimitri has going, his jab is fantastic. He's so technical. Great footwork. He's very calm. He's not going to be bum rushing guys either. And I just see him picking apart Arthur and winning like that. Now, the reason why the fight with Beterbiev is so interesting is because Beterbiev is really, really good. He's a monster, knocking out guys left and right. And he could give Bivol a tough fight. I know a lot of people would probably go with Beterbiev. A lot of them would go with Bivol. And it's undefeated versus undefeated as well. So it's unfortunate that when boxing really needs a super fight like that, they can't come together and make it. Instead, they have to make this champion versus number 7. You know what I mean? Michael Bisping, I think, fought like number 12 Henderson a while ago when he beat before his fight with GSP. He only defended the belt like once successfully, and I think Henderson was like number 12, and it was like really looked down upon because it was like, why are you defending your belt against a guy this low down? But from what I remember, that fight was made because Bisping got brutally knocked out by him before. It was essentially his retirement fight, so just give him one last title shot, and it ended up being really competitive. But that fight still made no sense, but at least there was some story behind it, right? This guy who's this lowly ranked shouldn't be getting a title fight, but he has a big win over you. This one doesn't make any sense at all because Arthur doesn't have a win over Bivol. Bivol's undefeated, and he's number 7. So, again, it's just, I can't really find myself getting excited for this, despite the fact I love watching Bivol. He's so fun to watch. Arthur is just, he's all right. I'm not going to take anything away from him, but it's really, I think, going to be a single-handed beating from Bivol, and I want them to make that fight with Beterbiev when they can. Boxing needs to get their stuff together. All those bans and all that just nonsense. I'm so glad to see the UFC doesn't fall for that politically correct nonsense. Why are you banning fighters that have nothing to do with what's going on across the globe? It's incredibly stupid. So Bivol wins this, just too good in all areas. So yeah, I mean, right now, basically my predictions are I'm going Wilder, Wallen, and I'm going to be going Bivol. But that could change over time as I watch some more videos and try to really digest every fighter, their style. I really want to cover boxing more on this channel as well. There was that terrible Shakur fight yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday, which I'm not going to even cover because it was so bad. So it was a... Hopefully, with this being my first video really on boxing, it'll get better from here on out. I really want boxing to kind of become interesting again. It feels like there's only one or two really good fights a year, whereas the UFC is just going wild with pound for pound versus pound for pound, number one versus number two. I hope boxing follows suit. So there you have it. What do you guys think about it? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did I get anything wrong? Again, I'm not the most knowledgeable person in the world about boxing. I plan on changing that though for sure moving forward. And yeah, how do you feel about these fights? Any of them interest you? Let me know all of those in the comments below, and I'll see you later. Peace out.